The Transportation Commission meeting for August 25th, 2021 to order. Joe, if you could read the instructions, please.
Welcome to our virtual meeting. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. All panelists, that is alders, commission members, and staff, have the ability to mute and unmute themselves. Please continue to use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the commission may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the Transportation Commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joe. Patrick, if you could call the roll, please.
Alder Miadzi. Alder Harrington McKinney is an excused absence. Chris McCahill. Here. Ann Kovich.
Here.
Denise Jess.
Here.
Bill Bremer.
Here.
Bridget Brown.
Here.
Ken Stride.
Here.
And I believe Harold is an excused absent as well.
Okay, thank you. Did everybody have an opportunity to take a look at the minutes from the last meeting? Our truncated last meeting due to the tornado warning. If so, is anybody willing? Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. We'll assume a unanimous consent vote unless anyone is opposed. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. Okay, we had a couple of emails for items that are not on the agenda, which were interesting, so everybody can take a look at those. I believe that there was somebody who was registered to speak, but that person withdrew, correct, Patrick?
Yes.
They didn't need to speak any longer.
That's correct.
Okay, so we don't have any public comment. How about disclosures and recusals this evening? Okay, seeing no hands, why don't we go into item number 2? Chris, West Wilson Street.
I think Sean may be leading on this one.
Okay, go ahead, Sean.
Yep, I'm here. Here we go. Everyone should be able to see my screen.
We can, thank you.
Okay. So before you, we have the proposed improvements to the South Henry, South Hamilton, Wilson Street intersection. On the corner of South Henry and West Wilson, there's a development proposal for 200 units and commercial with this project. We're proposing to changes the intersection. As you all may know, it's a complicated intersection, 6-legged intersection. So we are proposing the improvements that you see to narrow the cross section of South Henry Street. The only driveway on this leg of South Henry Street will be this development. So we are proposing to narrow the street at the intersection of 24 feet. We also see that this will improve just the clarity at the intersection. It'll allow a car to wait at the Wilson Street approach while South Henry, South Hamilton, cars from that direction. It just clarifies the intersection. And this design also allows for the future cycle track, I believe, has been approved. So that's, anyway, I guess it's compatible with that in the future. One complaint that we've that we're trying to address is that people come down South Henry Street thinking they can get to John Nolan. So we're hoping this added deflection will allow for drivers to be a better visual cue that South Henry Street does not go to John Nolan. Pretty straightforward, I believe, but I guess if there's any questions, I'm here to answer.
Bridget, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple questions. So this is my home intersection, so I'm very familiar with it. I would say that more people go down South Hamilton Street looking for John Nolan or the lake than anything else, but I am curious. So right now, when someone is leaving South Hamilton Street to turn onto Wilson or to go up Doty or something, they have to come to the stop sign at South Hamilton there. And then they essentially have to swing out and then stop again at the lighted intersection. I don't know how to, I guess right below where the green strip is there. Yeah, right there. And it's already kind of tight for people to try and pull out and then right their vehicle to be able to, for example, turn left onto Wilson Street from there. And this bump out seems like it's going to make that even more difficult for people to line up so that A, they're not blocking traffic that is coming sort of legitimately down Henry, South Henry or South Hamilton. And I'm a little bit concerned about that. I'm wondering if you can talk about, the turn radius measurements that you guys have made there to ensure that that's okay.
Sure. Yeah. So, when we design our intersections and curves, we use the typical, bus, because that's, similar to a fire truck, at 8 to 10 miles per hour to make sure they can make that turn. So this is the old curb here. So, our thought, and when we were modeling and doing the turning movements, was that it kind of helps guide the cars where to go. It's unlikely that, I think that cars will go all the way out here. I just haven't seen that much.
Well, they have to go all the way out there though to be able to line up properly. I guess parallel with the stop bar, the area there. Otherwise, you're kind of diagonal at the intersection.
Okay, so you're talking getting perpendicular at the intersection there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we can look at refining. But when we did the turning movements, we saw that the vehicles were coming pretty perpendicular. But that's something that we can, take note of and double check that to make sure that the signal head visibility and that people are perpendicular with the stop bar there.
Yeah, I think it's a confusing place because people have no idea where to go from that stop sign on South Hamilton. I've seen people sit there for minutes, not really sure if one of the signals is for them or what they're supposed to do, and not necessarily knowing that they're supposed to go on to that second stop sign or the signal at West Wilson, and maybe that contributes to it a little bit, but I'd be happy to send you some documentation of what commonly happens there.
Sure.
Yang, Yang, did you have I see your hand up. Yang, did you have some comments on that?
Thank you, Anne. Yes, so I just want to, add a little bit to that. So Bridget definitely, brought up a couple of really good points. One is that, actually we have more issues on Hamilton Street that people think it's connect to Jonathan Drive, down Henry Street. So this design needs to address South Henry Street. The bump outs on Hamilton Street will help a little bit. it would not, totally address kind of the traffic trying to find the outlet from Hamilton Street. That's for sure. But the bump out does help a little bit, and also we'll keep looking for future opportunities to even change interaction further to help that. On the alignment issue at the intersection, that's also a very good point. There are definitely pros and cons. So it's true that this new design will make it more difficult for vehicles to line up more squarely if they want to turn left onto Wilson Street. However, there are some benefits as well. Big benefits is that we shortened that crossing distance a lot, and we added a new crosswalk over there by doing that bump out. And that bump out also, really hides Henry Street. So kind of, hopefully make, Henry Street a very visible, desirable outlet for folks, or possible for all, like people think so. So that, those are some of the main benefits. It also kind of narrows the entrance a little bit. We think the benefits will outweigh the downside. We can make sure we have signal visibility be checked. For vehicles even not aligned squarely at Wilson Street intersection, they can still know clearly where they need to go. And Sean already mentioned about the turning radius. It's a design to accommodate quite large vehicle such as a delivery truck, a city bus. So regular vehicles shouldn't have any issues on that. But I just want to say there are definitely pros and cons. We feel the pros outweigh the cons. So we definitely recommend the change.
Okay, thank you, Yang. Bridget, did you have a follow-up or are you good?
Nope, I'll just send a little bit more of what I'm referring to, and just want to make sure that all these little nuances that you might not be aware of unless you're there at that intersection an awful lot exist. So thanks.
Denise, you're next.
Great, thanks, Ann. Sean and Yang, you might have addressed this with your comments to Bridget. I was looking at that intersection, and I know you're going to be doing some stuff with the signal and things, and especially because the cycle track is going in there. Just thinking about what a difficult pedestrian area this is, and I'm so sorry. I'm still learning to speak engineer, but I don't quite understand all the notes in the document. So can you kind of walk me through what's happening at that intersection that would just make it safer for pedestrian crossing? If there's a signal there and if it's a walk signal, just kind of what that looks like.
Sure. So the crossing that you're referring to is largely going unchanged.
Okay.
It's just that the two legs that, how they join up to meet that crossing there, that's where most of the changes happen. So currently there is, PED signals there, and, it's a signalized intersection. When the future cycle track happens in, I believe it's 2023, potentially, we will make changes to the signal heads, for the cycle track, but that won't happen until that's installed. So, I guess largely that crossing is going to be unchanged. The one at Wilson Street, it's more the two legs leading up to it that are getting narrowed and simplified.
Okay. So that narrowing and simplifying then, in theory, should make it easier for pedestrians to cross because there's kind of less you know, I find that there's just so much I'm trying to pay attention to at that place that from a pedestrian standpoint, it's a lot to be monitoring. So would the theory be that it will be decreasing how much a pedestrian has to monitor?
Yeah, you know, I guess, you know, the idea is that, you know, it's less confusing for drivers, which, you know, reduces the risk of a driver making a mistake, or, you know, doing something where, you know, they're not focused on pedestrians.
Exactly.
On, you know, everything else. So, yeah, I would say, you know, in that way, you know, it will be better for, you know, pedestrians crossing the street there.
Yang, did you have something to add there?
Thank you. Yes, you know, just quickly on this, DDC is correct that the shortened distance will make a crossing better, you know, reduce the exposure. Also, by reducing, you know, the traffic that come to the intersection in error, you know, we reduce the conflicts as well, especially the ones that not familiar with the area. They think there is an outlet, and you know, they got this in error and they got confused and trying to get out. They're trying to look at, you know, where they should go. So they, you know, it's hard for them to look at pedestrians. So I think, you know, that's probably the biggest benefit. Also, there wasn't a crosswalk crossing Henry Street before, and that's added. So, you know, I think that's another kind of new, you know, we define a new crossing, official crosswalk that I think that's going to help as well.
Great. Thanks so much, you guys.
Okay, great. Is that all you had then, Denise?
Yep, I'm all good.
Okay, Alder Foster, go ahead.
Thank you. Was there any investigation into, instead of sort of pulling Henry to the left and the bump out there, instead having Hamilton curve to the right and tee into Henry instead? Maybe a little bit similar to what I think is going to happen with Bell Street. It seems like there's some space on that end of that triangle, and by doing that, then you'd be able to actually move that shortened ped crossing to the Wilson Street crossing, which is really the one that most people, I think, are using, which is the really long one. And I think it would also address people. I mean, they wouldn't even really see Hamilton. They would have to take a hard left onto Henry and then a right onto Hamilton. Was that ever looked at, or are there any issues with that?
Yeah, that was.
Okay, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I guess, you know, we did, you know, briefly look at that, but, you know, it was just pretty challenging to make, you know, the movements work, and Hamilton, you know, it sees, you know, a little more volumes, you know, because it has a couple more, you know, sites on it, whereas Henry only sees, you know, this new development, which is 200 units. So we thought it made more sense to have South Hamilton be the one that's, you know, I guess is being teed into. But it made it kind of an awkward turn when we looked at it, and made it challenging. If you have anything else to add, feel free.
Oh, sure. Yeah, thanks, Sean. Yeah, you brought up some really good points. And also there are other couple of considerations. One is that triangle area, that's a historical landmark. That building and that, you know, the surrounding. So, you know, we have a very little chance being able to touch it. So that's, you know, definitely one consideration. The second reason, actually, is a bigger reason that you know, we discussed internally. We actually want to keep the option open for that. You know, in the future, South Henry Street may be able to be changed significantly to, you know, where how they look like today. So today, basically, it functions as mostly like a parking lot, you know, serving a few driveways. Now, with the new development, all the properties are integrated into, you know, one property and just one driveway. So basically, you know, it will, you know, the function of that street can be simplified, can be reduced. whether, current use is, the best way moving forward in the future, or maybe we can, make a Henry Street, something different, maybe like a public space, remove parking, maybe, just, narrow driveway to the development, free up the space, the rest of the space for something else. So that's kind of one consideration that we have. So if we do that, we actually want to, kind of like almost get rid of the street, that leg, just leave the Hamilton Street leg over there, and Hamilton will become kind of the main route, and Henry Street will become like maybe a public space with a driveway, something like that. So that's kind of another reason for this design, just to keep the options open for the future.
That makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. I guess just in consideration of the future cycle track and pedestrian crossing there, which I think, especially as we continue to get more and more development, I mean, it's going to be a really heavily traveled crossing on Wilson Street. If there were, even with everything you just said, if there were a way to kind of bend Hamilton and tee it into Wilson more than the way it is right now, that would allow for a shortened crossing, I think that's where in my mind, that's where the real value would be. I think having the shortened, crosswalk across Henry, just like you said, it's not really a major street. So I don't think that's hugely beneficial. And the one that's going to still be on Wilson, which will be the primary one, is still going to be, very, very long. So even in terms of helping signal timing and everything else. So if it might be worth just taking another look and seeing what you could do to kind of bend that around and really tighten up that crossing of Hamilton at Wilson. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. Yang, you actually just spoke to my question a little bit, but I was wondering about basically Henry Street, as you said, is going to be a driveway for this development, I guess, because you're eliminating the entrances. And so I'm wondering if parking is going to be on this street still, or in other words, I guess what I'm concerned is that this is just going to be a really wide driveway, that especially if folks feel like this is their private driveway, they're probably going to drive pretty fast on.
Yeah, so I will answer that. A great point, Chris. We actually discussed quite a bit, among staff and also with Alder Revere and the department on this. I think there are some thoughts that so currently, the use as basically as a parking lot, like mostly for folks with RP3 permits, is important. That's an important need, but it may not be the best use of the space. So we look into whether we can remove them, make the street very different. However, it does the change will create a lot of impact on those people who have the permits and rely on parking here every day. And also the street was just reconstructed very recently. So it's a brand new street. I think because of those reasons, the thought is that let's do some smaller changes now, but keep the options open for the future. So for now, parking will still be allowed for this dead end. Actually the street will not be the physical space open to a driveway would not be that super wide with parking on both sides. But it's kind of we do great. It's not probably the best use of the space eventually. And as the street needs to be reconstructed, or even before that, we may come back to revisit. So right now, I need we keep the options open for the future. So hopefully that answers your question, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. And that makes sense. Just one little sort of logistics comment is that I was looking at this ahead of the meeting and assumed it was a repaving and couldn't figure out why the driveways were being closed and all this. So if on these, if you could indicate if like on the drawing, like, oh, there's a new development coming in and that's why this is happening, that would be helpful and save us some time, I think. So thanks.
Yeah, great comment for the future. Thanks, Chris. Ken, go ahead.
I have a question. Why now rather than 2 years from now? It would seem that, like if you're accurate in saying that this is RP3 and it's sort of more of a parking lot, it would seem like we would have a better sense of what the volume of traffic is going to be. I know that, you know, if somebody's living downtown, there's a decent chance that they're not going to take their car out through the driveway and through the intersection more than twice a week or something like that. But it seems like we'd have a whole lot more data to understand that intersection of where it hits Wilson Street once the building is up, rather than now sort of speculating. And this sort of fits in with what Bridget was saying as far as I guess my other question is, right now, if you are northbound on South Henry, what is your traffic signal? Do you get a traffic signal and are you on the same traffic signal as South Henry headed south?
So great question. I think you're asking about the, the reason of the signal timing, whether, the southbound and northbound, signal happen at the same time, right?
Right.
Yeah. So Sean, do you know the answer? I think the answer is yes, but Sean, do you know the answer?
I do not.
Sure. Okay.
And so then,
I can
tell you what is Hamilton's?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Bridget. Yeah. Yep. So that confirms it. Yeah.
And what's the cue for people from South Hamilton to try to scuttle through the intersection?
That's one of the problems. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the, really the confusions that we have to deal with. People coming out from Hamilton really don't know what they need to do. And many times we found that they stop at a stop sign, but they think the signal is for them. Because the angle, and they may look at the wrong signal. So they, sometimes, and again, they are not familiar with the area. So they did, it's a very short time for them to figure it out. And sometimes actually they turn on red because, all the confusion. I think, the better we can do to simplify intersection will be better. And I think the changes proposed right now is kind of a step forward. It's a small step, but it's a step.
Okay, and going back to my first question, why now rather than 2 years from now once the development's in?
So that's a good question. We can definitely entertain that idea, but the thought is that the development will have lots of work to do, and concrete work to do after they finish the building. Mm-hmm. So it'll be a great time for them to take care of this work, and also this is a time that we can ask them to to do something. So not sure whether we can wait until 2 years to ask them to come back to do something. It may be possible. We can definitely check with the attorney's office on that, but that's not a typical. We also feel the change will at least simplify the intersection a little bit. That's something positive. We want to see the change sooner than later. And also, it will also be helpful for the new residents when they move to this building. They form the habit of this new intersection instead of change 2 years later, and they have to change their behavior. So it might be a little bit more difficult. But that's for the smaller considerations. We can look into it. We can look into whether we make sense to delay it or do it now. And whether,
normally, I would say do it. You would do it with the construction because you would have a fairly predictable thing as far as what's the volume of cars that are going to be trying to come through onto South Henry. But I think right now we just don't know what it's going to be like, because if you're putting up 160, at least some people are going to be going back and forth during the day. And anyway, so that's my druthers, is I think it would be a prime candidate to wait and see what the actual behaviors are before we try to put a cure in.
That's a good point. On that, we kind of know the behavior already. We know what the folks are doing today. And if we keep it as it is today, I think things will not be too different. We also asked the developer did a traffic impact study. So we know what kind of volume they're going to bring to the intersection. And actually, Sean and Chris may add more into that. So Sean and Chris?
I can just add one thing regarding the delaying the project for a few years. So one of the things is that it's a condition required as part of the approval of the development that TE placed on there. And when we do that, we collect surety for the project. So if you don't do and we don't release the surety until the project's done, and then it's retained for a little bit until the warranty's over. But if you don't do the project at that time, you end up holding a line of credit or surety credit from the developer, and that ends up being costly. So generally, people want to do the improvements as soon as possible. If we do indeed, keep it tight to the development and have the development pay for it.
Yeah, it looks like bridges might be at the intersection right now.
Yeah.
Actually, Bill is next, Yang. I'm sorry, did I miss something? Ken, were you done with your comments?
Yes.
Okay. Bill is next, and then you, Bridget.
Thanks, Ann.
Yeah.
Is there, and I don't know exactly, is there any concern of gridlock at that area where the traffic comes together from South Hamilton and South Henry? If there's traffic that's coming off of Wilson trying to turn in, that new development is that 200 unit is going to generate, I think, a little bit more traffic on there. And is there something to prohibit vehicles from, let's say there's a car or two cars stopped at the stop bar at Wilson, that they would block any traffic from coming off of West Wilson that's trying to turn down into either South Henry or South Hamilton? Or is there some signing on those streets that tell people to wait until the intersection is clear?
I think that's, a large part of the problem that we see today is that, cars do queue past, Henry Street, and cars aren't able to turn left into there. So at this, the idea is that, one car is there and people can, turn left from Wilson onto either street, and having the stop control at the other two legs, allows for, people to go one at a time, into the intersection as best as possible. But, I guess the idea of stopping both legs is that, that intersection remains clear. I think that's, the best, we can do given the geometry and how tight it is there. But, that was, part of the idea was that the left turns in there aren't blocked by people queuing.
You're talking which left turns from South Henry?
Or from, I guess, coming from Wilson and then through.
That would be a right turn then, correct?
Yeah, I guess it's a rightish. Yeah.
That's. Yeah.
Yang, did you have a comment on that, Yang?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just want to add that we did see some congestion right now, but it's pretty rare. But actually, I think if we can slow down people here a little bit, let them wait a little bit. Actually, it might be a better thing here, because it's kind of confusing, and they actually can use the time to figure out what they need to do instead of rushing and maybe running over a pedestrian.
My concern, I guess, is that if too many cars or some drivers try to, I'll just say, rush toward the stop bar toward Wilson Street, that they're going to prohibit any traffic coming off of Wilson that wants to get in there. And then with that new 200 unit development for South Henry, that's going to be a fair amount of traffic that they don't have today. So I think that's the last thing I would want to see is traffic backed up trying to get in there on Wilson Street. So, but I don't know if there was any signs. I think, the preferred way is for the drivers to stay at the two stop bars on, if there's already vehicles that are filled up at the stop bar at Wilson, stay on the South Hamilton and South Henry stop bars until those vehicles have started to move. But that's a concern, I guess, I'd have. But I could just see that you could potentially have some gridlock there. Thanks.
Bridget, you're next. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And I feel really badly for belaboring this, but it's a really important issue to my neighborhood. And so I don't know if you guys can see, but I am at the intersection. And I guess a few years ago, the city actually made more of a bump out across, right across here, where I don't know what this is, like an extra apron area. And I think this was supposed to, or was intended to help with some of these issues. I'll be honest, the neighborhood consensus is that it's made it worse, in large part because of exactly what Bill was talking about. So I saw on the plan that it says, narrowing this down to about 24 feet and just pacing it out. It's not much more than 24 feet right now, but making this even come further out, I don't understand. And as I was standing here, I watched it happen a couple of times. I just don't understand how cars are going to be able to come from South Hamilton and maneuver successfully around here. This is already a pretty small area that they have to be able to line up properly. And as was pointed out, you've got the signals right across the street there, which are still really confusing because you can also see very well the signals that are going up the hill towards Doty here. And people get really confused about which one. And so that's one of the reasons it's really important for people to line up well at this stop spot here. So I guess, I really hope that we're really considering this carefully. And it's great to hear that you guys are doing some of these because, you want to leave the door open for larger changes in the future. But I really want to make sure that we're, thinking about how that works. And so, yeah, here's a car right here. And they had a hard time even now lining up, perfectly perpendicular to the crosswalk. So that's all.
Any comments, Sean or Yang? Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, just one point, actually, you can see from here, the car actually does not use that space that we're going to take out. Even though there's space to line up, the car typically don't do that. So if they're not going to do that anyways, how about, maybe, the layering aid may not, make that bigger impact. But I do agree with, the comment that Bridget bring up that about the signal visibility. I think we once we do this, we'll probably will look into the signal orientation a bit more and find technologies to maybe refine the vision a little bit so that folks come out of here will not see the signal that's mean for Wilson Street. So I think that's definitely critically important. And I apologize. I think, Denise cannot see all of this. So apologize, for that.
Is that all you had then, Bridget?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Alder Miadzi next. You go ahead.
Yeah, just wondering if there's, it looks there's a lot of confusion to me. Is there any kind of signs that, I didn't see any signs that were put up in order to clarify or simplify anything? Is there any signs that might be put up in order to simplify where to go rather than all the confusion?
Are you trying to show us signs, Bridget?
Yeah, I talked to the city about those a while ago, and yeah, there's some issues because you have to maintain sight lines at this intersection, and so you can't have too many signs at too low of a height. And so that means that these signs really have to go kind of far up, and they get a little buried. You can see here, like behind the street light, that one says dead end up there. But yeah, that's definitely something. It's just a tough intersection. And there are dead end signs, here. But yeah, the signing and the striping is critical also at this intersection. So, being able to see the signing and striping plans, I think will also be important.
Lieutenant Fiore, did you have some comments on this? I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I've got the intersection pulled up on the city camera system. If that would help people visualize, or if they have any questions about, I could share my screen.
Yang, would that help? Go ahead, Yang. You're muted.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I tried to unmute myself, but hit the raise hand button. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that will probably help. But the camera only had look at the location is fixed, so we might not be able to see everything. And also, again, apologize, for Denise that Denise will not be able to see that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, thank you for that reminder.
So I think anything we can, rely less on visual at a spot, maybe describe in words that so Denise can participate. That'll be preferred.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great reminder that anything that's screen shared is Denise's technology does not translate for her. So if we're pulling something up on a screen share that's not been saved in Legistar or sent out an email, visual, as Yang said, a visual description is really helpful. So Alder Miadzi, did you have other comments with regard to your thoughts here?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ken, you're next.
I noticed that this is on the agenda for feedback. I think we've given a lot of feedback. I'm thinking we have a lot of other things on the agenda, and whether the staff feels that they've gotten feedback, and I'm not quite sure we've given a clear direction of what to do with it, but I think it's time to move on.
Okay, well, I see Denise has some comments, so I'm going to allow her to, thank you, Ken. I'm going to allow her to go ahead, and then maybe Sean and Yang can come back and ask if they have questions about the feedback that they've gotten. Go ahead, Denise.
No, I've given all my feedback about this intersection, but I just wanted to express my gratitude for Yang noting that visual descriptions are great. And actually, Bridget's walking tour was awesome. And her description. So thank you for the extra care to describe things that I might not be able to see. And thanks for the care of putting things in Legistar, because then it gives me the time ahead of time to really look materials over using assistive tech or access tech. So that's all. I just wanted to respond to that.
Sure. No, great. And thanks for the sensitivity, Yang. Much appreciated in terms of that reminder. So Yang and Sean, you've gotten a lot of feedback, as Ken pointed out, a lot of varied feedback. And it's obviously a tough situation. And Chris, did any of the three of you have any other comments or questions for people?
Yeah, I just want to thank the commission for the really good discussion. This is probably one of the most challenging intersections in the city with all the weird geometrics, and also it's a location that we have a lot of visitors. Bridget can testify that we have been having issues at the intersection for many, many years. And, we're trying to, come up with tools to improve it, but it's always, it's always challenging. I think, maybe the best thing to do is that, looking for opportunities in the future to further simplify intersection, instead of 6-leg intersection and all skewed, maybe we can get rid of, 1 or 2 legs, square them out a bit more, and I think we'll be in much better shape. Also, we can, we already did a lot of signing and marketing work to try to communicate the message to folks in what you should do. So I think, Automayazi, you have a really good point on that. We actually also have a sign as people coming out of Hamilton Street below a stop sign. We tell people what they do. They need to kind of, go to the signal and obey the signal instead of, just moving the intersection from here. So we do have that sign, and we have the paper markings, as you may see from Bridget's video, telling people to make that move. But sometimes it's, not everyone will get the message when they're busy and when they're confused. But I do think the conversation is quite helpful, and we're probably going to sit down with a team to, to review this more, to make sure, what they're proposing, what they're going to do, is the best, considering all the inputs from the commission and also the inputs from others. Again, I think our work is not done at the intersection. I think we have a long road to go, for many years. Hopefully, eventually, we can make this intersection a lot better. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Yang, and thanks to everybody for your feedback here. Obviously, a complicated area and a lot of things going on and a lot of confusion for a lot of people trying to negotiate it. Okay, if there isn't anything else on this one, we'll move on to item 3, the path alignment in Olbrich Park. And Chris, one of the things we talked about at our agenda setting meeting was who really has ultimate responsibility for making a decision on this because the path is in Olbrich Park. Do you want to maybe comment on that before we get started?
Sure. I can. So I think, as I understand it, I don't know if it's a state statute or what, but the Park Commission actually has the final say on what goes on in the park. So this would be we'll be going to the Park Commission, I think in September at their September meeting. So thanks for bringing that up. I can just give a quick overview here. The Atwood Avenue project is a street reconstruction project.
Chris, could you hang on for 1 second? Alder Foster, did you have a comment about that before we got started?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, and Chris can correct me, but I think perhaps the best answer is the Common Council actually has the final say on it. So it's here for recommendation from Transportation Commission. Board of Parks Commission does have statutory authority about the use of parks, and so they're being in, but the actual geometry in the project itself is of final approvals by the Common Council.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so Atwood Avenue is a street reconstruction project that we're going to be reconstructing Atwood from Fair Oaks to Cottage Grove Road. The year is still undetermined, but it's looking like it is going to get federal funding from the MPO. So would be within the next 5 years, hopefully sooner if we can advance it. During the project design process, we had our public meetings as usual. We had check-ins with back then it was the Ped Bike Motor Vehicles Commission. Kind of went through our major street reconstruction process. There is one item that's still a little bit unresolved. When we approved the geometry back in, I believe, 2018, or maybe it was early 2019, the path of the geometry of the path through the park. So when this went before the Ped Bike Motor Vehicles Commission, we had shown this option 1 as a path option connecting Old Lakeland Avenue to Atwood by this path, kind of along the lake shore, using some of the path that's already there, and then extending new connection up towards Atwood along the river. So this one did have we proposed this initially, got approved by the Ped Bike Motor Vehicle Commission. It did, throughout our project process, I would say there was some controversy towards this, and folks wanted some folks wanted a different alignment. When the project then went before the Park Commission, shortly after the Ped Bike Commission, one of the results of that Park Commission meeting was to have staff look into another route through the park, more direct and off of the lake shore. There was the park staff and also some residents registered in opposition towards the original alignment and wanted us to look into this alignment. So we've been kind of showing this path geometry since that time, but really never resolved it, through an official approval process or anything like that. So one of the issues with this option 2 is that it right now there's a kind of an informal sledding hill on the west side of the proposed path, and that those people sledding would no doubt go over the path, and that was a source of conflict. If we didn't plow it, then you wouldn't be able to use it as a bike facility over the winter. If we did plow it, it wouldn't be, it would be pretty detrimental to the sledding hill. So we kind of had an issue in that regard. So myself, Ann Freiwald with park staff and Renee Calloway met and kind of hashed out some possibilities here. And one option we came up with just recently is this option 3, where it has the more direct connection from Lakeland to the path. It does bow out around to kind of allow for more of that sledding runout area, and would allow then park staff believes this would allow enough space for the sledders so that we could plow it in the winter and keep it open during the winter season. So this is supported. This option is supported by park staff, and again, we have to still take it to the Parks Commission later this month. But so that was kind of what we're at. We were thinking this would be a good compromise option for that. Allows the path to continue all winter long. It doesn't inhibit the sledding. It keeps folks away from the lakeshore that was, didn't want the faster commuter bikes or the lake loop bikes along the lakeshore. There was a contingent of park staff and some residents that mentioned that. So this keeps people kind of off of that more passive area, at least commuter bikes and whatnot. You could still bike down that path, and nothing would stop you, but it doesn't, right now it kind of dead ends at the pier. So that's kind of all I have for a presentation. I'm sure there's lots of questions.
Okay, and I would just like to remind people that we did have a number of emails that came in. By my count, I think we got 5 of them, and 4 were in favor of option 1 and 1 was in favor of option 3. But obviously there's a lot of people who don't send in their feedback, and so that's just a small taste of what people think. Bridget, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to see if any possibility of getting clarification. This is something that I had wondered about regarding the authority here. My understanding with Chapter 27 of the statutes is that the city park board, whatever incarnation that locally, has the power to make the decisions. And so if that's not the case, if it's actually like common council, I guess I wanted to know, just a city of Madison decision or incarnation, because that isn't the case with the rest of this. So I just wanted to had any more information about that for the purposes specific to this proposal, which seems like a reasonable given all of the factors.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, and I don't believe we have anybody from the city attorney's office on the line that can help us answer that, Bridget. So that might be something that we might have to take offline, unless Chris, you know the answer to that, or Yang.
My understanding from park staff is, I mean, I haven't read the statute myself, is that the Park Commission has the final say of what goes on in the park itself.
Okay. Alder, is that all you had, Bridget? Okay, I assume so. Alder Miazzi, go ahead.
Well, my question was kind of answered with that, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chris, you're next.
Thanks. I'm kind of curious about option 1 a little bit more because, I mean, it has some clear benefits in that it follows the existing path that is there and then adds a connection directly from, the lower right corner to the street. So I guess what's the main objection to this one that we've heard?
I'll try, and Renee might be able to chime in as well as Alder Foster too. Certainly well versed in this. So I think some of the feedback we've heard is that people use this path currently for kind of more like passive, more like quiet conflict. I don't know the word. I don't do it myself. Just more pedestrian area, more slow moving, more not meant. They use that area of the park as more of it's not a transportation sense. So what I've heard is that that they want to keep it that way and have the the lake loop and the commuters be using a more direct route away from the lake shore and kind of directly towards the street. But I'm probably butchering that a bit. So Grant or Renee, please jump in.
Yeah, Renee, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think their concern is number one, just that is an area that's available for a more quiet park experience, that more contemplative, just sitting there enjoying it, a space to kind of get away from, the other parts of the park, which are pretty active. There's a lot of things going on. You can go there, enjoy the shoreline with your kids, and that there is a hill. I mean, there's a sledding hill there for a reason. There's a hill. They just want to ensure that people kind of have that different type of space, and that people who might be traveling through at a higher speed are on a different alignment. So I think, those are some of the concerns that Parks has that they've heard from users about Olbrich and this particular space there.
Okay, Patrick has reminded me that there is somebody Patrick, do you want to just indicate what the registrant said? Because they don't wish to speak, correct?
Correct. They just registered as being neither in support or opposition of the item, and they do not wish to speak, but it's Dan Cash from Helena Street.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Always good to recognize that. Okay, I have, Chris, Alder Foster, did you have something that came into play with Chris's?
Unless you have something to add, Alder Foster.
Okay. Okay, then Ken is next, and then Alder Foster after that.
I really like option 3. First of all, I just like the configuration, and I think it is a benefit of having both our group and also the park group come together with a solution that meets all of the different needs. And I think, I see the issue for the sledding. I see the issue for contemplation. My guess is that this for commuters gets them right onto Atwood actually pretty fast. And so that would be my druthers is option 3. That's all.
Okay, Alder Foster, you're next.
I wanted to chime in on a few things. So one, I was a member of Ped Bike Motor Vehicle Commission when this was first proposed. I'm representing the district where this is adjacent to. I can support both options 1 and options 3. And if everything were up to me, I would probably do a combination of those 2 options. I feel because of the conflict with the sledding hill, option 2 should not be on the table at all. It really will be a problem. Either we have to abandon maintaining the path in the winter, or we maintain it and it's really going to wreck things for people sledding. So I couldn't support that one. I wanted to answer partly Chris's question about sort of what the concerns with option 1. And I think you heard a little bit from Chris and Renee in terms of some of that feedback that was received. I will say, as someone who participated in all the public meetings for this project over the course of a year plus, none of those concerns were actually raised at those meetings that I ever heard. They were not raised at the Ped Bike Motor Vehicle Commission. And I understand it was perhaps just a couple people, 1 or 2, that raised that concern about really essentially not wanting people on bikes to interrupt this sort of quiet, quote unquote, quiet use of the park. And, I think it is important to just put that out there really clearly, because it's surprising to hear that space between people on bikes and people walking, which I think is really, really commonplace in Madison. We've got so many shared use paths across the city where this is just a normal thing. To paint people on bikes or quote unquote commuter cyclists as somehow being a hazard or a conflict or interrupting the peace and quiet of enjoying the lakeshore. I just think it's kind of discriminatory, honestly. And part of what I really liked about option 1, and I think what you're hearing when I looked at the comments that were received, I think anyone that actually rides a bike through here or uses it as a recreational lake loop or as a transportation route, just like people who are walking want to be able to enjoy the lake, people that are on bikes want to be able to enjoy the lake. And so if you asked anybody in that scenario, would you rather take this path along the lake shore and then come up to Atwood towards the end and be next to loud, stinky traffic? Or do you want to get routed and ride along next to loud, stinky traffic instead of the lakeshore? It's kind of a slam dunk. And so that's, I'm not surprised to see the support for option 1, which was the originally approved option. And I've talked with park staff about, you can kind of see, even in this satellite view, there's a really strong desire line running along the creek north and south that option 1 was going to pave. It's because people today walking or on bike already use that because it's a natural route. And I think it really would be an asset to the park to have that paved. All that being said, I think option 3 is a big improvement over 2. And it also does have the benefit. I appreciate the parking lot getting shrunk up on here. And also I think there is value in having a paved connection from the path and the playground area, the boat launch area up to that parking lot. You know, so people that do arrive by car and want to be able to take a stroller down to the playground area, et cetera. I think it makes sense to have a paved connection there anyway. So, you know, if I were to choose something, I would take option 3 and also include that paved connection along Starkweather Creek. So you'd essentially have a loop all the way around and people could choose for themselves if they wanted to ride along Atwood or along the lakeshore. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess, thanks for that, Alder Foster. That's kind of what I was thinking too. So I guess I would agree with if there's any reason not to do both, you might as well. The one thing I wanted to add, and thanks for pointing out the desire line, is one thing I was thinking about option 1 is the sort of meandering curve to it, which I know sort of like goes along with this idea that people want to stroll through the park, but you can tell from that desire line that folks are taking the straight shot from that lower corner to the road. So if this is the route we go and there's an opportunity to straighten that out, I don't see why you wouldn't do that also.
Chris, do you want to comment on that? Is that a possibility?
Was it the comment to try to shoot straight like this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess these curves, especially in a park environment, kind of look nice in a plan view, but I don't think it's how people would naturally travel. And it just adds some extra distance that I don't think does much, even whether you're walking or biking. So I think the reason it bows out so much is that we were trying to get people perpendicular to the creek to with the bridge. And then we've got minimum radii that we tried to, adhere to. We could certainly tighten that up. You would just have to, ride a much slower ride, which I guess is something we're hearing. So also, but that we could tighten that up. But that was the reason why I bowed out as much as we used kind of a preferred radius and a perpendicular crossing with the bridge.
Other comments, Chris? No? Okay. Bridget, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, I would speak in favor of keeping the bit of meander there. Particularly people, if you're pulling a trailer, et cetera, it makes it a lot easier to keep up a steady speed and to continue the flow of bike traffic instead of, when you have a lot of straightaways, it's a lot easier to accelerate. And then particularly when there's traffic, having to decelerate on any kind of a trail. So I would just say that, this isn't, it looks like a lot on paper, but in actuality, I don't think on the ground that it would be anything even very noticeable.
Thank you. Alder Foster, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to point out one other thing you can't see from the plan view, but it's actually quite a bit of grade change right at the end there. So I can't tell you how many people I've seen taking a B-cycle along that desire line, and then they get to the end to try and get up, and they go up a little bit and fall over. So I think that meander also helps with that. It just makes it addresses that pretty significant grade drop right by the bridge.
Yeah. Chris, one of the things, I thought I heard people saying that they kind of like the idea of having both options. Is that possible?
Is
that what you heard as well, Chris?
Anything's possible.
And if I can jump in for a minute too, because I've talked to Ann at Parks, who apologizes for not being able to be here tonight. She's out of town. But, we talked a little bit about if they could at least do some improvements to the desire line. Now, in talking to her, the interest was not in having that be paved. It was interested in more of a crushed limestone sort of surface, but that, trying to improve the desire line on the one side of the path where the one alignment would be.
So that would be sort of headed in the direction of what people were talking about, Renee, but not paved?
Parks was interested in more of doing some sort of different type of surface, not paved.
Okay. Bridget, go ahead.
Yeah, just wondering if anybody knows offhand, what would be the maximum grade through there? Do you guys know?
Am I muted? No, okay. So everywhere except for the Lakeland connection, we're no more than 5.
Okay, you are. Okay, so then feasibly some sort of like a crushed limestone surface or something like that could be possible, particularly if you're not looking at plowing. So, okay.
Okay, so I have heard the most, this is just review and feedback, but it sounds like most folks are in support of option 3 with keeping some sort of a path, at least along the lines of where option 1 was shown, but not exactly where option 1 was shown, but perhaps in a different surface. So that's not worded very well, but I'm trying to sort of summarize what I have heard. Thoughts from people? Majority of people, if you don't support option 3 as the paved option, can you let us know? Because that sounds like what I had heard most from people. Okay. So Chris, do you think you have the feedback, and Renee, do you have the feedback that you were looking for from us?
Sure do.
Okay, great. Any other thoughts from people? Appreciate all the thoughtful feedback. Okay, you bet. Thank you very much. Lieutenant Fiore, and sorry about the severe weather we had last time, but tornado warnings required us to head off and, be safe. So thanks for coming back again.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to present to the commission. And last 2 weeks ago, it was kind of one of those things. I'd rather people be safe than try to stretch something out for just to make it happen. So anyway, I'll go ahead and I think I should be able to share my screen. I'll get into it a little bit more, but if folks are curious about East Washington Avenue, I did add that a little bit later on in the report, so we'll get to that as well. Just reminding that our department has adjusted our focus areas or our goals for traffic enforcement kind of as the years developed. Again, focusing on hazardous moving violations and actually de-emphasizing non-hazardous violations and supporting alternate outcomes, i.e. warnings for non-hazardous violations. We continue to focus on the high injury network and hopefully supporting school zones as they start up here in the fall. It'd be nice to be back to that activity, and then being responsive to citizen complaints as well. Just again, another reminder, slide. The map on the right is our high injury network, and the map on the left is the map that we work off of for our grants. That's kind of a joint mapping between us and Dane County because we work in partnership with them. So these are the roadways that both are high injury as well as roads that we share jurisdiction with the county with at some point in the roadways. So that's why the two different maps. I pulled up the serious and fatal crashes so far for 2021. The tan dots are the serious crashes, and the red dots are the fatal crashes. Some of them might not have been reportable that you see. This is pulled off of community maps. So like the one on the interstate down by Ho Chunk is not, would not be considered a city crash just because it was a state patrol matter. But the red dots are kind of showing you where our fatal crashes have happened kind of in city proper or in the city kind of boundaries as it relates to other jurisdictions as well. So University Avenue had, or University Police had the one fatal as well. But that kind of gives you an idea of where we're seeing those serious crashes and fatals so far this year. And that's pretty consistent with what we've seen in previous years, concentration along the Isthmus, East Washington corridor. Certainly, I think we've seen more instances along the East Washington Avenue corridor than we have in previous years. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But again, just pulling up the concentration of citations and crashes. Again, this is a kind of a two-part map, and I can pull up a more detailed map of quarter two, but just showing the difference between quarter one and quarter two. It's not a ton of difference between where we're writing the citations and where we're seeing the crashes this year, where we, I think, a little bit more concentration of citations we're seeing along the East Washington corridor, but generally, again, still staying along the high injury network and focusing on those areas. In terms of what citations we're writing, these are just citations. It does not include warnings, but we wrote approximately 1,724 citations in quarter two. The vast majority of those for being for speeding, and that's hard to see from my chart, but about double of where we're at last year for quarter two. But given that we were facing a multitude of challenges, I stretched it out to look at how that compares to 2019, and we're still a good deal below of where we're at from 2019, about 500 citations fewer than we were 2 years ago. But certainly you can see that we've resumed closer to normal operations than we were able to experience in 2020. Looking at what types of citations we're writing, we make the delineation between hazardous and non-hazardous. It's an important distinction for us, particularly when we look at disparate impacts from traffic enforcement. We want our officers writing more in the realm of hazardous citations as it affects overall safety. And there's a lot of implications for that, meaning that we generally see more disparate outcomes or disparate citation numbers with the non-hazardous citations. So again, as we ask officers to focus on hazardous violations rather than non-hazardous, we typically see right around a 2-to-1 ratio. And actually quarter one and quarter two, the average was 72% for the first two quarters of this year, and actually quarter two was 74%, which is great. It means that the officers are writing more hazardous citations overall as it relates to non-hazardous. So that percentage is increasing. That's the direction we want it to go. So that is trending in the right direction.
Excuse me a second, Lieutenant Fiore. Ken, did you have a question now, or did you want to wait till the end?
If I could just, if I could just ask, is there a way that you sort of have a gauge of what your traffic volume is? Because, so if you're looking at the bar chart, the one hazardous moving violations, how much of the 2021 being lower than 2019 is due to less traffic as opposed to better behavior?
I think it's certainly a consideration that there's less traffic volume, so less opportunities, less motorists. There's fewer fish in the barrel, if you will. there's fewer cars for us to stop. But I think there's a lot of different things that can impact those numbers. Looking at, again, I struggle with drawing a lot of meaning out of 2020 numbers, and I think 2021 is still pretty skewed with the pandemic and how it affects reading too much into any data that we're looking at. I think overall, the staffing of the department at any given time, other calls for service, the amount of free time officers to have to do traffic enforcement, aside from their other duties. I think traffic enforcement for the vast majority of patrol officers and community policing teams, it's a nice to do, but it's not a need to do in the sense of they do traffic enforcement when they have an opportunity, and sometimes that can be challenging. So I think there's a lot of different influences on those overall numbers. Certainly, grants and test officers write the vast majority of the traffic citations in the city, and they also relate to the number of crashes in the city. So if the number of overall crashes is down, and I don't have that statistic to see, how many crashes we had this year at this time compared to the previous 2 years. But if the number of crashes go down, we write citations as a result of crash investigations. So if the overall crash numbers are down, that would mean that we would be writing fewer citations in that area as well. So I would agree. I would think traffic volume is one influence on how many citations we're writing, but I think there's a lot of other factors as well.
Thanks.
So moving on, for traffic complaints, looking at Q1 as compared to Q2, I think we saw more density in complaints along East Washington Avenue, but also along what we would kind of the Whitney Way, Westtown Mall area, that we hadn't really seen that density of complaints before. We have been concentrating on that area when able, and continue to see quite a bit of high rates of speed along those main arteries, the Whitney Way, south of the Beltline. We continue to see it. So those areas on the west side, we continue to receive complaints, and that those complaint areas, those hotspots, are pretty consistent with previous years. That map there's nothing surprising about that map. We do see concentration of complaints around the Northport and Troy Drive areas. That can vary. I know we've had some level of success in past working with the staff out at Mendota Mental Health, because they can be a main contributor to traffic along that roadway, and just trying to get them to be more sensitive of the residential speed in those areas. So again, we just sat out there and didn't know when we had a test officer out there necessarily egregious kind of average speeds, but we'll continue to give that area some attention. And the rest of the areas, I think there's a hotspot around Sprecher and Milwaukee Street, which is relatively new. Again, I think as that area gets more developed, that area will continue to be challenged in terms of overall density of traffic and traffic flow. So I believe there's 2 or 3 new apartment complexes going up in that specific area. So traffic, moving a little bit to East Washington Avenue. Traffic complaints along East Washington Avenue have dipped considerably. I'd added the one complaint in August, but that was I drew that out like in the first week. But we saw a strong spike again in April, and since then it's fallen off a number of complaints we received on East Washington Avenue considerably. And I kind of attribute that to 2 things. Either the problem is improving, which I don't know if that's, I think the folks who do complain would argue with me on that, or B, folks know that the city is focusing on it and the necessity to reach out and draw our attention to it. They know we're aware of it and doing something about it, so they're not feeling compelled to call in a complaint. So we know it continues to be issues, particularly on Friday and Saturday nights, but overall speeds and volumes continue to be a challenge for East Washington Avenue. We just had a rollover crash at East Washington Patterson earlier this morning. Not unique to any different part of the city. It was just the dynamics of the crash caused one vehicle to roll over. But again, it continues to be a concern for us. The number of citations and warnings we wrote on East Washington Avenue have been significant. Citywide, we've issued about 10,755 citations and warnings citywide as of August 2nd. Just under 1,400 of those were the result of crash investigations. About 2,700 of those are the result of grant-funded overtime initiatives. So the traffic grants or projects that we run. Test wrote about 2,400, a little over 2,400 by our 5 test officers. So each test officer is writing about 100 citations a month, somewhere on average during that first quarter. About 1,936 proactive traffic citations were issued, meaning that they weren't directly related to a crash and not related to a grant. And we wrote, and that was just on East Washington Avenue. So that accounts for about 18% of all citations citywide that we wrote just on East Washington Avenue. For the number of traffic grants that we have, we've trended about 33% of all of our traffic grants occur on East Washington Avenue. That stayed pretty consistent. We had more in July and August, a greater percentage, but spread throughout the year, it's roughly about 33%, or in this case, exactly 33% of all of our grants were occurring on East Washington Avenue. Again, July and August, we did a greater percentage of those, but stretched out over the year. That's generally our traffic report, but I'd happy to answer any questions or get into any areas that folks would like to.
Before we do that, if I can just mention, we do have on a topic for a future TC meeting is a specific update on traffic safety on East Washington Avenue. We've been working with Yang on when best to schedule that. Tony, so obviously you'll be welcome back when we do have that conversation. But I just wanted to remind everybody that that is something that we will be talking about more in the future. So Alderman Yazzie, go ahead.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and thank you, being the alder on the north side. I just want to thank you guys for, I remember I asked for people to monitor Troy Drive, so you guys came out and made sure that, didn't really give out tickets, but just made sure everybody was being safe. So I want to thank you for that. But I wanted to ask you, how many officers do you think that you guys might be, because you touched on it a little bit, but not really in depth in talking about staff, given with the situation with Randall Park and a lot of other things in Madison. How many officers would you say that you're short when you come to really doing traffic enforcement?
I was just speaking to somebody that was at the Milwaukee, they're actually doing motor officer training, combined training with Milwaukee County. And Milwaukee has somewhere around 100 traffic officers. A little unique in that those traffic officers also handle all the crashes throughout the city. So they're doing crashes as well as traffic enforcement. But Milwaukee has 100, and they're roughly 3 times our size. We have 5. I think at our maximum staffing, we had 2 full-time test teams early on in my career, which would have been late or around 2001, 2002. We had 2 full traffic teams with a sergeant and a lieutenant overseeing. So that would have been 10 total officers and 2 sergeants. Right now we're down to 5 officers and holding the sergeant position vacant until the beginning of the year. So certainly out of my probably be appropriate for me to make a staffing recommendation, but I think that gives you a range of kind of where we're functioning at now and the resources we have available to put to bear on. East Washington was was a challenge for us this summer in that it necessarily drew resources away from other districts and other problem areas. So as we focused on East Washington Avenue, those resources went away for other districts. So we're certainly doing trying to operate as efficiently as we can with the resources we have. But again, as way of comparison, some cities operate in a kind of a different model, and that's why they have those larger numbers. But overall, I think with the availability we have and the partnership with BOTS to bring in close to a $250,000, basically allows us to augment our staffing. It allows us to have free staffing, if you will, for the city. And pretty much the summer, every day in the summer, I had 6 extra cops for 4 hours each day to just focus on traffic enforcement. So that's a really plus for our city that we do have good partners in Department of Transportation. We're successful in how we run our grants so that they continue to make sure we're funded in those areas. And it really allows us to augment our efforts on traffic enforcement.
Thank you.
Okay, other comments or questions? Okay, then I'll need a motion to approve the report or accept the report, excuse me. Bill, is that a motion?
Motion to accept.
Yes, it is a motion to accept the report.
Okay. Ken, is that a second?
Yes.
Did you want to speak to your motion, Bill?
Sure, and I thank Lieutenant for giving a great explanation of how you're doing your resources and the results that you had with the way you're using the limited resources that you do have. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
well, good.
We'll assume unanimous consent vote unless anybody is opposed. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you very much, Lieutenant Fiore.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the review and approve.
Oh, looks like Ann froze on us. She'll probably have to exit and come back in. Ken, do you mind taking over?
Sure. We're now reviewing and approving the updated TC work plan. The work plan is in the packets and mine, which is hard copy. I believe most of the things that are amended are in red. So we might want to focus on that. And I guess we could also talk about things that are deleted if people have questions about that. Joe, I don't have access to see whether people are raising their hands, so maybe you can do that part right now. Or at least I don't see any hands.
Kind of looks like we lost the chair and the vice chair. So
he's coming back in.
Okay. You want me to take over?
Yes, please.
Okay, now Ken is co-host.
Okay.
Sent an email to Ann. Okay.
So let me just see on gallery here. I don't see anybody's hands up. Does anybody have any comments on the work plan? Now's the time, Alder. You wanted to take over, so.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna stay in my lane. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Don't stay in your lane. This is actually the Lieutenant Fiore is gone. You don't have to stay in your lane. So any motion then for approval? Looking around, now's the time for a hand. Bridget?
So moved.
Is there a second? Alderman Yazzie? Is that a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you can lower your hands, and then I will assume that if I don't see any hands, we are approving this unanimously. I'll count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's approved. Okay. Recommendations regarding racial equity, bias, and inclusion. This is something where, how do I put that? So Anne really is much more onto that. And so the question that I have is, maybe if we have people from, if you don't mind, I'm going to just skip to 7 because we do have Chris here who could possibly do some updating until we recover Anne. Chris, would you mind doing the item 7?
That would, yeah, if no one objects. It's not going to buy us much time though.
We're still struggling. We're punting.
Yes. So I will give a brief update from TPBB. And all I planned on letting folks know about was, hang on a second. Mainly that there was a presentation update on the Complete Green Streets work. So if anyone is interested in where that stands and what the next steps are, you might want to look back at that. And the second point was on the fare policy. So I think folks are aware, Metro fare policy. I think folks are aware that the Metro's been moving forward with updating its payment system. And with that comes a bunch of changes in how payment would be collected and managed, including things like fare capping. So basically TPBB approved the recommended fare policy, which was a bunch of updates to fare collection. However, Metro is going to keep cash payment for at least the time being, which means hanging on to the cash payment on existing buses and adding a cash payment feature to the BRT payment stations. And then Justin pointed out at TPB that we're kind of walking a line between what's policy and what are issues for Transportation Commission. So TPBB approved the policy moving forward, and Transportation Commission is going to have to eventually approve changes in fares and the way payments are structured. So those are my updates, and I think I successfully bought us the time we needed.
Any questions of Chris?
Yeah.
I think Anne's back on, but if you have anything more, Anne.
My internet connection went away. Sorry about that. So it wasn't just that I got booted off. My internet totally went away. So did you go through the whole work plan?
We did not. We skipped because of the thunderstorm. No, we just skipped to the update, and Chris gave us an update on item 7, and now we're coming back to item 6. And I recognize that both Tom Lynch is listening in and Yang are listening in. So if you hadn't come back in to take over, I would have asked them on the update for requests.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so sorry about that. I have had trouble with Spectrum. They're doing something with their internet, and I had a whole day without an internet, but I was hoping that it wouldn't happen tonight. So thanks for taking over, Ken. With regard to the work plan, we added the racial equity and social justice commitment that we talked about, and having a total of semi-annual check-ins, formal check-ins, to remind us that this is what we want to do. So we'd have that agenda topic, review the Transportation Commission's commitment to include racial equity and social justice in its work, and then comments about the training sessions, because we may have more than just, the one training session that we're talking about in terms of how to apply the lessons learned from these training sessions. So there are 2 points in quarter 1 and quarter 3 with regard to racial equity and social justice. And since the Safe Streets Madison program was approved at the council meeting on August 3rd, along with adoption of the traffic calming subcommittee's final report and priority recommendations, I took out the programs that were being wrapped into Safe Streets Madison and added in the Safe Streets Madison program. So I worked with Tarek on the wording with regard to racial equity and social justice, and I worked with Yang on the wording with regard to Safe Streets Madison. And then I also worked with Yang adding a Vision Zero education and outreach item to the work plan, and deleted the other items that would be wrapped up into that. So really, this is a reflection of everything that we've had going on and updating our work plan to reflect that. So comments or questions?
We actually already.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry. I didn't hear you say that, Ken. I beg your pardon. So we'll go on to Tom Lynch. And so sorry I spoke. Somebody should have stopped me. I missed you saying that. I thought you had talked about item 7 and we're going to 6, but we're waiting for me for 5. So thank you for doing that. And so I'm assuming you haven't covered item 6 yet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead, Tom. And again, sorry for being booted off there. So.
Yeah, so, excuse me, I'm on 2 devices, and so I'm going to go on to 1 device. There, I think that's better, at least for me. We had decided jointly, kind of as the Transportation Commission and Transportation Planning and Policy Board, to pursue bias training, with Transportation Commission taking the lead. There was, we as staff, we've had several successful interactions with some of that. And then the Sustainability Commission also had a successful trial of a bias training within their committee setting. We submitted or released an RFP. It was unclear if we would get enough respondents, so then we decided to go through the formal purchasing process using Finances Purchasing. The RFP was released, whereas we were thinking of maybe getting 3 proposals. We actually got, I think, 17 proposals, quite a few. The proposals were all from across the nation. Some of them were had, I'm going to say, impressive people or credentials. However, a lot of the proposal was prepackaged. And I think many of the responders didn't really understand what we were doing or what we were trying to achieve. A lot of the proposals focused on bias training in the workplace for employees. And really what we wanted to do was focus on bias training in the committee and policymaking setting and the establishment of priorities, which is, I think, uncommon. And that's perhaps why many of the proposals really kind of, I'm going to just say, missed a little bit of what we were trying to achieve. Because there were 17 proposals, it wasn't a simple decision. So what we did is we chose members of the equity team from traffic engineering. And then we also brought in a representative from DCR, TARC, to evaluate the proposals using a rubric. With that rubric, price is a component, the qualifications, references, and project approach are all components. The rubric, using that rubric, Urban Triage's proposal came out on top, actually by quite a few points. Some of that is due to their local presence, because there is a preference given to local preference, but also parts of their proposal kind of indicated that they understood a little bit better what we were trying to achieve. The understanding of having an equitable transportation system, trying to distribute improvement projects equitably. They seem to have a better feel for what we were trying to achieve. So after that, we then contacted a reference. Urban Triage has worked with Madison Metropolitan District. And so we contacted them on Monday and asked how they did and were they able to adapt some of their curriculum, because most of the firms or consultants put together a curriculum that isn't necessarily directly focused on what we might be trying to achieve. A lot of them probably were based on interactions with previous clients, and so we got very good references from MMS to just see if they're open to making some modifications. But that's the direction we're heading towards right now.
Okay, comments or questions for Tom? It sounds like a good review process. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll just say I've done similar sorts of trainings through work and stuff, and a lot of it at times feels like it's the person implementing the program trying to figure out how to meet you where you are, which a lot of these folks would have probably not. It would have taken a lot of effort to figure out where we were, and so anyway. So thanks for going through the process of weeding through the folks that didn't really understand and finding the ones that could really, I think, speak to what we wanted to do.
Okay, Tom, are you looking for Alder Riazzi? Go ahead.
Yes, it's hard for me to say this, but I would like to see some kind of it'd be nice to look at that information, because so much with traffic sometimes, especially when the north side sucks with transportation. A 15-minute ride takes an hour just to get downtown. So coming up with even the system of the BRT system, which is not coming out till later on. So I'm really having a tough time understanding how, when people say coming up with a comprehensive plan to outreach disenfranchised neighborhoods, and especially with this new BRT system and how it's coming out in the second stage. So I'm just wondering, when you're saying, talking about the staffing, coming up with plans and being equitable, it'd be nice to understand where everybody's coming from, especially on the staff of when we're talking about being equitable and inclusive with every neighborhood.
Yeah. So this is not a request to develop an equity plan for the transportation department, or develop an equity plan for the outreach for BRT or the metro network redesign. We do have consultants on those things, but this was actually a consultant to deal specifically with the committee and the board. And I think what happens is that I'll give an illustration in that. An example is that there's been some controversial projects on Park Street, development projects that involved transportation. And so there'd be testimony from many different groups, some in the neighborhood, some associated with the developer, some associated with, let's say, the biking community. And they're all coming at the Transportation Commission saying that, their desires or priorities are kind of the most important. So what does the Transportation Commission do with that? You have all these different voices coming at you, and how do those voices enter into your deliberations when you're making a decision on what to do with the street? And so the focus of this is not so much on what are we doing with these projects, although that comment is a good comment, and I think we can go offline because I know that you recently had a public kind of outreach event on the north side regarding the network redesign, and so I feel like that's also a legitimate discussion, and we can talk more about that, and we are preparing some materials to answer that question. But this is so that's one pot, right? And that's a very important pot. But this pot is like for the board and for the commission, one person says this and another person says this. And how does the board make a decision considering equity, transportation policy, the desires of the neighborhood? And it's just an interesting. So that is more of the focus of this. This is not necessarily for staff, although as staff we will learn a lot from. But this is specifically for board members and commission members, to help you consider all voices as you deliberate decisions.
How to listen better, right, Tom? How to open our minds so that we're listening and hearing better, because we've heard from some people that they didn't think that we were actually listening to them or actually hearing what they had to say. Denise, go ahead.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for doing the extra care on the screening, because, one of the hope for outcomes that I have is that we as a commission really do listen and have that understanding of systemic oppression that has impacted members of our community for eons. And, so when someone is presenting their issue, we hold this larger understanding of, the disenfranchisement. So it might, on the surface, the issue might just seem like not a big deal when a mom, for example, talks about having to drive to the grocery store with her 3 kids and needing parking that's close by, and that if she can't get the parking that's close by, then, how does she manage the 3 kids as a working mom? Just those kinds of situations, understanding the bigger implications of systemic racism and oppression that I think we all need to be holding when we're making really difficult transportation decisions. So my hope is that, and I think urban triage is a good choice, can really help us hold that understanding of decades and centuries of systemic oppression and how that shows up in our decision making. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, other comments or questions? Sounds like we're moving in the right direction. It was great that we had a lot of RFPs that came back, but it sounds like not all of them were on point based on what you said, Tom. And it sounds like urban triage would be the best choice. Other comments from the group relative to that recommendation? Are you looking for a motion from us at this point, Tom, to move forward with that recommendation on urban triage? I know you have some additional discussions to go forward with them.
Yeah, I guess there must be some feedback. I apologize. I guess I don't think we necessarily need a motion. We're actually, we'll enlist this consultant using the department training budget that we typically use for our own employees, but since this is a different year, you know, where we have a lot of training opportunities, we're kind of repurposing those monies. So I don't know if we need a resolution. If there were reservations, that would be something that we would entertain. If there was reservations, we'd like to hear that. But otherwise, if there's no reservations, we will probably do some more interaction and negotiating with urban triage.
Okay. I have not heard any reservations. I see people nodding. So I think we really appreciate it, Tom, all the time that you and Yang and others have spent working on this, and look forward to hearing more about the training as we move forward, and really appreciate you repurposing your training funds for the department to help us with this effort. So, and we'll certainly keep the board in the loop as well.
Okay.
So, okay, great. Did you have anything else, or anybody have anything else for Tom?
I just wanted to say thank you, Tom, for setting up what you did as far as with the BRT meeting, and also too with the tour that you gave me. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Okay, good. Yeah, and we'll continue to do that. It's always good to help more people understand what we're doing, and also listen to what people think we should be doing, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, great, thanks. And it sounded like, Chris, you gave your update already on TPPB, correct? Okay, so we're on general announcements by the chair. It's with sadness that I have to let you know that Patrick McGuigan is retiring from the city on September 3rd. So at this point, I would like to ask for a motion to suspend the rules so we can take up a special resolution expressing our sincere appreciation to Patrick for his dedicated service to the city as recording secretary for the TC, and wishing him well in his retirement. Bridget? That's
Yes,
a motion?
Yes.
Okay, and Ken, that's a second? Okay. We'll assume a unanimous consent vote unless anyone is opposed. Okay, Ken, your hand is up, but I'm assuming that's not because you're opposed. Okay, so I will take this opportunity to, and because we wanted to surprise you, Patrick, we didn't have you distribute it. So I will send it to you after the meeting. And Denise, I will read it into the record, and also you'll be able to hear it as well. So this is a resolution of the City of Madison, Wisconsin Transportation Commission dated August 25th, 2021, regarding the retirement of Patrick McGuigan, expressing sincere appreciation to Patrick McGuigan for his service to the City of Madison and to the Transportation Commission, and wishing Patrick well in his retirement. Whereas on September 3rd, 2021, Patrick McGuigan, will retire from his position as Program Assistant 1 in the Traffic Engineering Division at the City of Madison, as well as from his position as Transportation Commission Recording Secretary. And whereas Patrick has been working for the City of Madison since September 20th, 1999, where he has taken positions as hourly clerk typist and police records services clerk in the police department, as Administrative Clerk 1 in the Parking Division and as Secretary 1 in the Traffic Engineering Division. And he was promoted to his current position of Program Assistant 1 in the Traffic Engineering Division on December 3rd, 2017. And whereas, in his current role as Program Assistant, Patrick has been responsible for payroll and personnel assistance for the Traffic Engineering and Parking Divisions and the Department of Transportation, DOT, Director's Office, organization and collection of operating budgets and personnel-related data for traffic engineering and parking programs, providing support to traffic engineers with streetlight and signal assessments, and providing other administrative support, traffic engineering, parking, and DOT office staff. And whereas the Transportation Commission, TC, was created pursuant to MGO Section 3356 and began meeting in July of 2018, and Patrick was designated as the inaugural TC Recording Secretary and has continued in that role. And whereas the position of TC Recording Secretary is a demanding job that requires countless essential administrative duties be completed in order for the TC to properly function and fulfill its many responsibilities, which tasks have been diligently completed by Patrick. And whereas Patrick also staffed TC subcommittees, performing all the many required organizational duties to help the subcommittees successfully complete their assigned missions, including the most recent traffic calming subcommittee. And whereas Patrick was also a valued member of the team which created and implemented such essential training tools as the TC Handbook and the TC website, which have been used and appreciated by both existing and new TC members. And Patrick has also contributed to helping update both the TC Handbook and the TC website in order to keep them current. And whereas Patrick's knowledge and expertise regarding City of Madison procedures and processes will be greatly missed by the TC and by city staff, especially those from traffic engineering, parking, and DOT. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Transportation Commission expresses its sincere appreciation to Patrick McGuigan for his dedicated service as its recording secretary and to the City of Madison over these many years, and we wish Patrick well in his retirement. So I would ask for a motion to approve that resolution. Alder Miadzi, that's a motion.
Yes.
And Bridget, that's a second?
Yes.
Okay. And would either of you like to speak to your motions, or would anyone else also like to say a few words with regard to Pat? Yang, did you want to go ahead? Or Alder Miadzi, your hand is up? Are you?
All I can say is that is a heck of a accomplishment. To have everything that traffic is transportation is such a huge thing, and to be able to articulate exactly how it should be managed and how the people should be taken care of is such a, it's even hard for me to, learn so much that I need to learn about this. So I appreciate all the work that I hear that you've done, and thank you a lot for your service.
Yang, go ahead.
I will wait maybe until others are done. So how about let the commission members speak first?
Okay. Tom, you have your hand up. Tom Lynch, can we let Ken Street and the other commission members go first and then come back to staff?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Ken, go ahead.
Patrick, I've been on this commission on and off for almost 20 years now, and I can say you really are an astounding staff member here. I would especially note that the conciseness and accuracy of your minute taking is helpful, is actually outstanding. And in general, your kindness to everyone is most appreciated. And I would like to say that,
I work with Patrick a lot on the agendas and on many things that folks on the commission. Ken sees a lot of it, but many other folks do not. And there is so much work that goes on behind the scenes, just an incredible amount of work that goes on in order to make the meetings happen and to get the information to us in order to make our decisions. And Patrick just does a great job of staying on top of it. And as you said, Ken, he's always so careful about being kind to everybody and respectful to everybody. And that's just really so much appreciated. Yang, why don't you go ahead now?
Okay, thank you, Ann. Yeah, very briefly, on behalf of city staff, I want to thank, Patrick, for many years of service, especially the work, with TC. As the inaugural executive secretary for the commission, I feel very lucky, to have such a good supporting recording secretary to work with. I also had a very good chair Ankovich, and all the members to work with, to support. So it's a blessing. But knowing that Patrick is always there, I can walk to his desk, or like last year, pick up a phone to call him at 5 p.m. for example, when he's after his long work hours, and getting things in Legistar, keeping track of things. That's very ensuring. It's very helpful for me. One of the things that I used to really be dreadful reading is the emails from payroll clerks asking for timesheets. Right, saying you are late for a timesheet, please submit them if you want to get paid. But now actually, I'm looking forward to receiving them because Patrick has a really good way to make those reminder emails fun for everyone. He may talking about the special day. He may talking about different things that really, but somehow he went back to timesheets, and we all got the idea. Oh, okay, he's asking for timesheets, but in a very fun way. So I'm going to miss that, Patrick, and I'm sure all our team members are going to miss that. And also we appreciate all your help in other things. In addition to get all of us paid, that's 100 timesheets every couple of weeks. 140 employees from traffic engineering, 80 some from parking, a few from a DOT. You processed so many of them. On top of that, you helped us with many assessment districts. Really keeping things moving. Many council resolutions. And providing all the day-to-day admin support for all staff in the office. I think everyone feels comfortable to go to you for asking for help. That really says a lot. So congrats, Patrick, on the retirement, and thank you very much for all the contributions you have made to the city.
Thank you, Yang. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've just been with transportation for 3 years now, but I have to say that Patrick's one of the bright spots in my day. Even when I started, he was a good tutor. This is how you fill out your timesheet. This is how you do this. He really had a can-do attitude. Like if we needed something done, he would never really say, well, you can't do that. He would just kind of say, well, these are the ways that he would make it happen. If we needed something done, he would find a way to make it happen, get it done. And then also I'm going to say he was good in crisis management. It seems as though I think we did a survey of the work orders generated from crises that Yang's emails gets, like 2,000 last year, over 2,000, right? And And yet Patrick just was able to kind of keep things even, saying, right, this is what it is, and we'll work through this. He didn't perhaps overreact to anything. And then also I'm going to kind of reiterate pleasant and fun. I think Patrick and I are of similar generations, and so sometimes he would reference old TV series like Jackie Gleason, Remember to the Moon. He just made a reference about a bus driver just 2 days ago to the moon. He and I were the only ones listening that understood what that is. So he's just a very pleasant thing. I'm very excited about who will replace him, but in some ways he's irreplaceable. Thank you for your contribution to the city, Patrick. Just 3 years. I really barely know you, but I've appreciated how you've made my 3 years a lot easier.
Thank you
Thank
all. Yeah.
Oh, Go ahead. If you want to say something before we wrap it up, Patrick, go ahead.
It's just, I have enjoyed the varied work that I've had with the city since 1999. And I have really enjoyed working with all of the staff that I've worked with. And I have also enjoyed working with the commission and support you in your endeavors, because you have a lot of work in front of you and it's hard sometimes. So if I can give any service for the future, I hope that I can. But thank you for all your kind words.
You're welcome. Well, you'll certainly be missed, and we didn't want to let it go by without recognizing it. So we have a motion on the table. I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anyone is opposed. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried, and I'll email a resolution to you, Patrick, but I'll also sign one. I'll sign two of them. So one for you and one for, if you so choose to have it, one for you and one for the permanent records, and send them off to you. So Yang, did you want to comment on Patrick's replacement? Because I believe Aiden's here with us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ann. Frankly, I think all of us kind of freak out a little bit. When Patrick decides to retire, how can we replace him? So we started expedited the process to recruit his replacement, and that's luckily we have a pool of very talented employees to draw from. So we did recruitment within DOT, and I'm happy to announce that we selected Aiden Larson to replace Patrick as to fill the position. So Aiden has been working for parking division, and recently has been very helpful at helping at the traffic engineering parking DOT office front desk. Has been handling a lot of interactions with the public, so he does have good knowledge of the operation of things. So he started his new position as Program Assistant 1 on Monday. He will have 2 weeks to work with Patrick to learn everything. So at this point, I think I'm confident that TC will be continue to be supported, and also all of us will continue to be getting paid. So Aiden, would you like to maybe say a few words?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Hey, so yeah, thank you for that. Do feel like I have a lot to learn still, but thankfully working with Patrick it's pretty great. So I'll be able to get a hold of it all pretty good here in these couple of weeks. But,
well, great. Well, welcome, Aiden. We'll look forward to hearing from you and seeing you on our meetings. And Patrick will be an excellent coach here during the 2 weeks. But Patrick will certainly miss you. And thank you again for all that you have done. So again, everyone's unanimously in support of that resolution. So thank you so much, Patrick. And we wanted to make sure that you knew that we appreciated all of your contributions. And we look forward to working with you, Aiden. Okay, thanks everybody. I didn't have any other announcements other than we have 3 members whose terms expired at the end of June and automatically were extended to the end of September under 3301. And those will be taken up at the council next Tuesday. We still do have 2 vacancies. So, again, if anybody knows of any candidates, please let us know. That's all I had for announcements. Yang, did you have anything else or are you good? Go ahead. I see your hand up, Yang. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. Yeah, I just want to say that the mayor's office are considering filling some of the vacancies at TC. So hopefully there's some applicants. So hopefully, the mayor's office can find some really good candidates to fill vacancies for TC.
Okay, great. We appreciate it. All right. Next we have future agenda items. As we do each time, potential agenda items for the September 22nd TC meeting were attached in Legistar. So you can see those items. Does anybody have any other items that they would like added for consideration for future TC agendas? Not seeing any hands. You can always email us if you do have any other ideas. Okay, if not, we'll need a motion to adjourn. And again, thank you, Patrick. This is your last TC meeting. Alder Miazzi.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second? Denise?
Yep, I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. We'll assume a unanimous consent vote. And again, thanks, Patrick, so much for everything. I'll still, I'm sure, be talking to you over the course of the next week or so, but just wanted to make sure that you were publicly thanked for all of your contributions.
Thank you.
Okay, and good night, everybody, and sorry for getting booted off the internet earlier.
Good luck. Good luck, Patrick.
Yeah, good luck, Patrick.
Yeah.
Yeah.